All right. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the West Valley School Board Board of Directors board meeting. It is Tuesday, July 9th, 7 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get going, Mr. Strong reached out, and he's downstairs watching his daughter play volleyball and will be along in just a little bit. But at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to excuse Mr. Kephart, who is out of town this evening. Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Communications?
We have the responsive public comment is a placeholder. We also have, so there's no response. There was no public comment at the last meeting. We have two letters, emails that came from OSPI, Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. During COVID, the OSPI was working with the State Board of Education to redesign the recognition program for schools, and so they were able to put that methodology into place and then identify schools for the 21-22 school year and the 22-23 school year. So I included in the board packet the emails from the OSPI and State Board of Education that Mountain View Elementary was recognized for the 21-22 school year and Apple Valley Elementary was recognized for the 22-23 school year. And that's the communications.
Thank you. Item 6 is public comment on non-discussion items, non-discussion agenda items. So at this time, I'll open it up for public comment on non-discussion agenda items. On the agenda for tonight includes discussion items on the 24-25 budget, fee schedule, approval of some resolutions for surplus property, approval of child nutrition bids, a change order on the high school track and field project, and approval of roofing projects at Cottonwood, Mountain View, and White Hollow. So if you wish to speak on those items, that'll be in just a little while. So I'll open it up for public comment on non-discussion items. Seeing nobody jumping up, I'll close the public comment period on non-discussion agenda items. Next up is approval of minutes. 7A is approval of minutes. We have minutes from our study session on June 25th, as well as our board meeting on June 25th. Minutes have been presented in the packet. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Make a motion to approve both study session and board meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Wolcott. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0. Item 8 is a discussion item. Tonight is the first public hearing on the 24-25 budget. Dr. Finch,
Yes, very
why don't
good.
you introduce it tonight?
So we have Sheila Wood as our Director of Finance. She'll be presenting this evening. Information was included in the board packet for the public and for the school board. Really appreciate the work of our finance department and really all of our staff working together with the administration team. As we said at the last board meeting, we had submitted the budget to the ESD. The Educational Service District in Yakima. They do a review to see if there's any red flags. They were able to do a quick review because our budget team had done such a nice job. And so we were wondering if we'd be able to have the first reading tonight, depending on the turnaround time from the ESD. And the ESD did get back to us, and we have it on for first hearing tonight. We'll have a public hearing after the discussion. And then the procedure would be take that information and then come back around at our next school board meeting in 2 weeks and have the second hearing, and adopt the budget for the 24-25 school year. So at this time, we'd like to have the school board join the audience, and then we can see the PowerPoint as Sheila Wood takes us through the information that she's prepared.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. My name is Sheila Wood, Director of Finance. I'll be presenting the 24-25 budget for all funds as well as the four-year forecast. For the contents, it'll be the budget summary key points, the budget balancing worksheet, budgets and excess levy summary for all funds, general fund budget balance, what they call the MSOC report, which is materials, supplies, operating costs. And then I did attach in the file the entire draft of what they call the F-195, which is the budget for all funds, and the F-195F, which is the four-year forecast for all funds. That is the file that's uploaded to the state. I want to begin by pointing out this is a group effort by the finance team, and it's not one person, it's many people. So I want to thank them for all the hard work they do as well. This takes a lot to put this all together. The key points, the student enrollment budget for the 24-25 is 5282. That's 4,922 plus 360 for the Running Start, transitional kindergarten, open doors, and alternative learning. And that is a conservative number. Salary information was provided by our Human Resource Department. Our estimated increases range from 2.5% to 2.75%. For staffing, the certificated staff is at 340.14 FTEs, and classified staff is at 228.7 FTEs. This is a little less than last year. Beginning fund balance is estimated to be around 10.4 million, which is 11.5% of total budgeted expenditures. And this will be used to fund state mandates and collective bargaining agreements. Revenue increased by approximately 1.56 million, and that's in comparison to the 23-24 budget. I don't have the actual numbers yet. Local revenue projected to increase by 374,000, which includes food service, local fees, and investment earnings. State revenue is projected to increase by 3.5 million. This is enrollment projections, state allocations, transitional kinder allocation, which was moved to state. Federal revenue projection is to decrease by 2.3 million. ESSER funding and transitional kinder shown as state funding in 24-25. So by moving that whole transitional kinder program, it has increased one program and decreased another. It's a wash. We built in capacity of 2.5 million for grants, contracted services, salary adjustments, legal expenditures, carryover, and unexpected expenditures. I have to have that capacity built in because we cannot exceed our budgeted expenditures without doing an entire budget extension, which is a lengthy and time-consuming process. So we always build in quite a bit of capacity. We budgeted a transfer of 1 million from general fund to the capital projects fund for district-wide projects. Expenditures increased by 1.55 million, and that is in regular instruction expenses projected to increase by 1.8 million. Federal expenditures projected to decrease by 1.8 million, which would be ESSER, most likely, most of it. And then special education, vocational, and support services projected to increase by 1.55 million. For the Capital Projects Fund, budget includes estimated expenditures capacity of 16.1 million. The capital projects budget this year includes capacity for all district-wide projects, leaving an ending balance of the state-funded allocation of around 7 million. It is undecided at this time what the actual approved projects will include and the timing of completion of those projects. The debt service fund, the budget include expenditures for annual principal and interest payments on all bonds and possible bond issuance fees with a total cost of 8.58 million and a total debt ending balance of 55.8 for principal balance. The ASB fund, revenue expenditures are budgeted for athletic classes, clubs, and fundraising for nonprofit activities. Possible use of levy funds to offset any reduction, which was created by the House Bill 1660, which waived fees for certain extracurricular events for qualifying students. And then the Transportation Vehicle Fund, I did work with the Transportation Director because of the electric bus mandate, and I believe that's been delayed. So our estimated expenditures will remain at around 495, which provides capacity for the purchase of 2 large buses and 80,000 in major repairs. Any questions so far? This budget balancing worksheet can be somewhat confusing, but it does give you a good idea of where our revenues come in and how they are spent and how we reconcile it by program. I hope it makes sense to you. We did end up with a balanced budget of $67,000. Can't quite read the rest of it. It does show also our staffing on the far right, where it's spent by program for the certificated staff and the classified staff. So the budget and excess levy summary of all funds, this is a report that is straight off of the state once you prepare the budget. It tells you for each fund what your revenue will be, your expenditures, if you're going to transfer any out. And then it also shows your excess of revenue over expenditures, beginning fund balance. Hope that makes sense. The general fund budget balance, again, this is a state report once you complete your budget that compares your 22-23 actual, 23-24 budget, because we don't have our actual yet, it's not complete, compared to the 24-25 year budget. As you can see, the ending fund balance for 22-23 was 9.1, and by 24-25, we're projecting it to be 9.4. Not a huge shift, which is good. The MSOC disclosure report is mandated that we complete, and the MSOC, again, is for your materials and supplies. There's no salaries included in this report, and basically the state wants to know, this is what we gave you, how are you spending it? Are you spending it all? And we more than spend it. I hope it makes sense to you. Any questions? So the 4-year forecast is somewhat challenging to complete. We do the best that we can. As you can see, we're projecting our ending fund balance to slowly decrease. That would be if we didn't step in and make changes, which we would. We just don't know where. It's too far out. Capital projects 4-year forecast. We project by 27-28 we will have spent it all, pretty much, other than $500,000. So debt service, we will have some bonds drop. If you notice in the 26-27 year, our 27-28 is much lower. And our balance at the end of that year is 1.8 million, which is significantly lower, but our debt will be significantly lower as well. ASB, we project will stay pretty stable. As you see, our ending fund balance in 27-28, 498. For 24-25, it's 490, so not much. We don't predict a lot of change there. And the Transportation Vehicle Fund 4-year forecast at this point, we do not anticipate buying electric buses unless we have to. So I worked with the Transportation Director and we built in 2 buses each year. It could end up being more. We're not sure yet. It depends on the fleet and how they age. And that's the end of the presentation. Any questions?
Sheila, IPD, know what that presently is right now?
For what?
IPD, the implicit states inflationary.
I do not, I'm sorry. Not off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Sheila. Are
Thank you.
sticking around for
I
the-
am. Yep.
the fees? Okay, great.
Yep.
So there was a question about IPD, which is the implicit price deflator, which is the inflation measure for the state
You
for
should-
allocated staff. We'll look into that and we'll get that information. I'm not sure if they've identified it. I'm not sure when they come out with the different, years IPD. So we'll take a look at that and we'll have that
Should be on
information.
the OSPI website, I bet.
Okay.
Sheila, just a quick question. How do you, what's your process of forecasting? Do you forecast based on previous years or what goes into that?
There is a lot that goes into that, believe it or not. Yes, we
I
do look
believe
at the historical data is extremely important. We do look at that. You can see in the presentation that we go back and look at prior budgets. We also look at trends, and we do a lot of research on with OSPI and the ESD on anticipated loss of funding or increases of funding. There's a lot that goes into it. We also have
Housing.
salary contracts that we look at to see for increases in wages. Like with the transportation department, we may have to go to start purchasing electric vehicles. That will be a whole different world if we have to do that. Way more expensive. You have to build the stations. So that would be a different budget if we were to go that method. So we look at all that. Capital projects, very complex because we don't know which projects are going to be funded. We don't know how you guys are going to vote to spend the dollars. So we do the best we can with what we have today.
Thank you. There's been some discussion in the past about raising the capital project that we moved from general to capital. It's $1 million a year now. There's been some talk, I think even in the past board, about moving that or increasing that. Is the reason we didn't increase it this year, I mean, I guess it's up to the board too, but it was all the cuts we were looking at. Is that something, I guess I just want to keep the board on top of that for future.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's something to look at. Also, we have interest income from the current
we do.
capital projects
Yeah.
funds.
Yeah.
So that's kind of helped to offset some of the needs there. And as we were looking at reductions that we had to make for this upcoming year, and then that we were able to kind of offset with the interest income that we've had.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Okay,
All right, thank you, Sheila.
Item 9 is public comment on discussion items, public hearing. So this is our, as mentioned a second ago, this is our first public hearing on the 24-25 budget. So at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up. Again, this is the first hearing on the 2024-2025 budget. And so I'll open up the hearing now. Mr. Marinacci.
Good evening. I couldn't attend last meeting, and I understand that Joe is having some fun, so hope he does have a good trip. Really, just if he was here, I'd tell him I really liked the presentation, the overview. He laid it out really nice. And maybe just related to Sheila's comment, I really like the fact that we're trying to maintain a good ending balance, and just big picture, it looks like on the face of it, we're trying to be fiscally responsible, so I like all that. A little bit related to the comment that Mr. Wolcott had raised regarding CapEx. There was that discussion just looking at deferred maintenance that the district has experienced over many, many years. There was a big discussion about increasing CapEx to cover it. Maybe just a little more color, Dr. Finch, or would show as to the deferred maintenance and how we're viewing that. Because I'm just not sure from what we've seen in the past if the $1 million per annum is adequate. And I don't know from the excess money that has been spent on a few projects if it actually has worked down the overall CapEx list. And of course, I know new things pop up, right? So anyway, it was a big concern that was expressed by, previous board and what have you, and just want to make sure that we're maintaining our facilities in a good manner. In the board memo that was in the agenda last time, there's a section on the bottom that has a 2024-2025 list of reductions. And I did listen to the board meeting again, even though I could attend, and I did hear a little bit of dialogue regarding that. And I just wonder if there could be a little more color, maybe an appendix that describes a little bit more detail. So for instance, under salaries and timesheets, I think Joe might have been trying to allude to the fact he didn't want to reveal anything of a sensitive matter. I'm not interested in individuals. What I was more interested in is where the positions were going to take place. So for instance, are we talking about losing a couple of paras? So I know Dr. Finch, you made an emphasis that we really don't want to impact the classroom. So I just wanted to understand where those impacts were. I heard Joe's comment. It was a little bit nebulous or high level, I'll call it, regarding process supply, program adjustments, funding shifts, reallocation. So I just wonder if there was that additional bullets that help articulate some of that detail. And I know that he offered that he'd be willing to visit with folks on an individual basis. Just thought for the sake of, obviate wasting his time speaking with a bunch of individuals if he had a little further detail. So anyway, that's what I got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public comment and the public hearing on the 24-25 budget. On to item 10A, approval of 24-25 fee schedule.
Yes, this is our annual approval. At last year, when we were at this time, we did have a board member, and then the rest of the board said to take a look at the parking fee at the high school, see if that was something that maybe the district could work into the regular budget. And so we were able to do that and eliminate the parking fee at the high school this year. So that's a point I wanted to make sure the board was aware of. Other than that, we just recommend to adopt the fee schedule as presented. Thank you.
Dr. Finch, before I ask, could I just sort of as a general proposition, in the past, for instance, we and I'm glad to see this, on the extracurriculars to try to remove the financial barriers on the extracurriculars and particularly athletics is in the past we've had fees for athletics, but I see that we continue to have some fees for the arts. We have an art fee, band fee, marching band fee, choir fees. I think maybe philosophically, should we be charging those fees, and how much money are we really generating off of this? And is it time to maybe say, well, what are we truly trying to capture by these fees? Now, like, I understand, maybe the clothing for PE shorts and shirts, and perhaps the technology fee, class fee, although I'd probably like to see that go away too. I can also appreciate the Chromebook fees and so forth, because we need to have some, I think, in my opinion, we need to have some deterrent or some incentive rather for people to not break their Chromebooks, and some accountability to that. But I look at these various fees, and they're it's not a great deal of money, and it's sort of in line with what we talked about. A very good discussion, I think, about the parking fees and saying, well, is this really a lot of money? And I think it's also, I don't know that there can be much disagreement that we feel like these programs are wonderful for a well-rounded student. So I will vote in favor of the fee schedule, but specifically, would like us to move in the direction of eliminating the art fee, unless I'm told something compellingly different that would change my mind. But I'd like to see the art fee go away and the various band fees and the choir fee, National History Day, and the technology class fee. I'd frankly like to see those go away. I
Well,
can't wrap my head around
sure.
how that could be a great offset of the costs that we have to put on these programs.
I think what we probably need is just more information about the purpose of each of those. I know, like, for example, for art, I believe it's where the student is creating the art from the clay and then taking it home,
Sure.
that type of thing. So I think it'd be good for the board to take a look at what's the purpose of each of these fees, and then where does money go, and how would we replace what's needed to run the programs if we weren't to have the fees. So that's something we can look at. And just basically at this time last year, we said take a look at the parking fee. And that's what we did. So we can do the same thing here with these other fees.
I appreciate that. Just like I said, I just throw that out. I mean, again, I'm just one person, and just throwing that out for some consideration. I guess I would, and I know that we have, if there are financial needs that can take care of these fees, but like I said, I just can't imagine this being a tremendous amount of money in a $90 million budget that we can't figure this out. So
I know we weren't trying to discuss this. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Finch, for working, and Mr. Conley, whoever was involved in getting rid of the parking fees. My position, as I said last year, was it felt like we were charging students to come to school, to learn to drive to school, becoming an adult. Those are things I think that are just generic to growing up and becoming part of their education. I really like Mr. Thorner's comments about some of those other fees. I totally agree with him. Again, it's the same sort of mindset. So like I said, I just think that those are good things to get rid of. So I hope that by next year that we can work, even if you can't get rid of all of them, maybe it's a phased in thing where you could do a little bit at a time until we get to a point that we can manage it all. So thank you for that consideration, and
Sounds good.
thanks for your comments there, Mr. Thorner.
And yes, and appreciate the discussion and the direction. So we'll take a look at that and bring more information back to the board at another meeting. We do recommend approval of fees for this upcoming school years. So we need to have that in place so we can
sure.
share that information with students, but we'll take a look at it for the next budget.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the 24-25 fee schedule as presented. I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next is our annual approval of a resolution to surplus personal property owned by the district. In the board packet was a memo explaining this, and then also all of the surplus electronics and non-electronics. I was particularly amused by the fact that we still have VHS tape machines in the district. So
No 8-track.
exactly, it's surprising. And then some other items. So I'd entertain a motion to approve that 2407-765 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next up, we have approval of child nutrition bids for milk and dairy products and fresh produce. Again, I think this is an annual process where we identify vendors that are going to service the district's needs with milk, dairy, and fresh produce. And so unless there's any questions from the board, Dr. Finch, anything else to add?
Nope, we can just approve that as item C, and it would include both C1 and C2.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the child nutrition bids, both 1 and 2.
Thank you. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next are a series of change orders for some unforeseen issues that have arisen at the high school football field and track project. The the conditions and the change orders are in the board packet. Are there any other questions or any other discussion from the board members?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Little bit minutia, so might not be able to be answered here. So change order number 1, increased asphalt need, and I know some of that was because of foundational issues that they found. And this is really minutia, but I know I've been involved in some of this before, and usually they do deep core samples in order to have a better bid to begin with. And I'm just curious if there was core samples. I'm just curious. It's a lot of money for a change because they found foundational problems. And it just seems surprising that they wouldn't have known those when they went out to bid. So I'm just curious on that. Don't need an answer right now, but
Sure,
it
we'll
just
look into that.
sort
The,
of hit me as an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Also, would it be possible, don't need it tonight, but orders 3 through 6 obviously can be allowed without board approval, but I would love to know what those
Sure.
change orders were and what the cost for those were also.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
just for the audience, there is a certain threshold where the business office can make those change orders without board approval, and those were the orders 3 through 6. Items, orders 1, 2, and 7 are needed for board approval. That's why we have those on the agenda this evening.
Thank you.
My question is not minutia. Not that those weren't great
Yeah.
questions. Those that actually 3 through 6 was something that I wanted to request as well. So thank you for that. And the core samples that's good as well. I think mine is more of a big picture, just a big picture. Are we reasonably confident that these are the last change orders that we would receive on this project?
We're confident. I'm confident that these are the last ones that the board would need to approve as we continue to move forward with projects. There's often change orders that of a small degree, but these are
Right.
these are major, and these are due to the foundation. Once they were moving dirt, they basically found that the foundation of the field, and that's also perhaps some of the reasons we've had the settling that's happened and the uneven, how the field is currently uneven, and why there's been the need to make these changes for the safety of the students in the first place. So my understanding is that this would we don't anticipate any other change orders of this magnitude that would need to come to board approval.
I'm just going to say this out loud. I'm pretty disappointed by this. And I want to be careful about how I couch this, in that this is a lot of money. And I had a certain position about this. I had a certain position about how we're going to spend these monies. And this is not really a criticism and saying I told you so relative to this, but my disappointment is that, and again, budgets are budgets, and unforeseen things can happen. And I this is it was the board's will to pass this resolution, and we want to go about doing this in the best way possible, but and we have to do this. I mean, it's, to vote no on this would frankly be irresponsible at this point, but I'd be remiss if I didn't communicate some disappointment about this. I am, frankly, and that's about all I have to say about that, other than this particular item is one that is not without controversy. It is a needed project in the district. That really wasn't the point of my dissent originally, but and so on the one hand, I've said this numerous times. I'm really happy that we're going to do this, and if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. So again, it would be irresponsible to vote no, at least for me. But I do want to say for the record that I'm disappointed about this.
I guess I would just say the administration is disappointed as well that
Yeah.
we are having to make this change order.
Yeah.
And that some of the just like any other budget, some of the other budgets have come in, the bids have come in under what we had anticipated.
Correct.
And It's a good question that Steve Wolcott had about the core sampling. Could this have been predicted? What we found was once they started moving dirt, there was a need to have these change orders based on what they found once they were starting the project.
I just want to add a little bit of a counter perspective here. because,
What, you don't agree with me?
well, I'm surprised at, right?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So I just think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up a couple of key points here. I get the cost, and I'd certainly agree with you. But in building houses, I've built 3 of my own homes, and in 2 of the 3, there was some major expense that came up that I could not predict. We did everything we could to do the right thing, to predict everything and budget, and they still happened. So to me, this is part of the building process. I'm just grateful it wasn't even bigger, because we've heard horror stories about the fields, to be honest. The second thing I want to bring up, and it's an important point to not lose sight of, is that we went out originally with a certain bid amount when we presented this. Those bids came back tremendously lower, substantially lower. So for this to happen, it's kind of a wash in some ways. It's not going to be an exact figure, but I don't see it as something that I'm going to be so upset about. I mean, I don't like it like the rest of you, but I don't see it as unnatural. This is part of the building process. So I just want to throw that in just to offer some counterbalance to all of this, because it's important to know all those little details. So, and consider them.
Thank you.
That being said, I will still vote for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still gonna vote in favor of this as well. So, would you like to make a motion then to approve the change order? Unless anybody else would like to say anything.
If not, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the change orders, change order number 1, 2, and 7.
Thank you. And thanks for the questions for Mr. Wolcott, and I appreciate in advance administration getting back to us on this. Okay, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next up is approval of roofing projects at Cottonwood, Mountain View, and White Hollow. And yes, before you even say, those bids did come in under the budget, and for which I appreciate, and that is very good. And I'm also happy to see that, and again, in terms of this is a project, again, I'll just say for myself that even though I dissented in the use of this money, this is a project these are projects that I'm glad that we are tackling, and that we have the resources to do that, because they're very important projects and are, as like Mr. Marianacci said, these projects were on our long running deferred maintenance list. So we're checking those, or we're making progress on at least these items. So anyway.
That's great. Yes, thank you.
Anything else to add, Dr. Finch?
Nothing else?
Okay. Anything else from the board? Questions? Okay. I'll go ahead and let me back up. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the roofing projects at Cottonwood, Mountain View, and White Hollow as presented. And I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. The motion carries 4-0. Items arising. I confirmed this for the next meeting. Know that Mr. Wolcott, myself, and Mr. Kephart will be back. Are you going to be here at the next meeting?
No, I will not be.
Okay. And then Mr. Heed will also be gone, but we'll have 3. So absent some significant problem with my travel, that we should be fine. So, and if there is a problem with my travel, then I'll be able to participate remotely.
It's possible for me too, if it's necessary.
Yeah. I should be fine. I should be fine.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Anything else on items arising? Superintendent's report?
There were 2 items in the superintendent's report that I wanted to highlight. First was our focus on Summit View Elementary and having some additional support there for our students and the social emotional needs of students. We had learned in May that there might be opportunity to partner with Heritage University through the work of ESD 105 as a hub for placement of interns. And so during June, Stacy Drake went to work and in 1 month was able to work with ESD 105, identify an intern who will be placed at Summit View for the 24-25 school year, and someone that would be a good fit, making sure that there was someone who was wanting to work in the future at an elementary school. And so we'll have a full-time intern for mental health counseling at Summit View in the 24-25 school year for no cost to the school district. Just really appreciate the work of Stacy Drake to make that happen. The other one was the boundary petition. We did have the hearing on July 1st for both of the petitions. This is something that actually the school districts, Yakima and West Valley, have been working on for a while now. I appreciate the work of Michael Thorner and Mark Strong, who were two of the representatives from the board who met with representatives of the Yakima School District Board of Directors and working through this process. The final decision was made on July 1 by a citizens committee. Both the petitions were denied by the committee, and as a result, the parcels will stay in the Yakima School District. I did share with the committee that our board of directors recently adopted policy 4325 with the intention that the school district will work proactively with neighboring districts in the future regarding citizens' requests for transfer territory. And the citizens committee basically at the end, they said they really appreciated West Valley's work on this, and that West Valley has been great to work with throughout the process. So that even though it went against the district, I guess they were still complimentary of our work. So just really appreciate the board being proactive on that and adopting that policy.
Thanks, Dr. Finch. Board reports, board development. Okay, item 14 is executive session for the performance of a public employee. And so we will go into executive session for approximately 30 minutes. And we will come out of executive session taking no action. Oh, don't go anywhere because there's some stuff that everybody has to sign. Okay, it's 8:11 and we adjourn the meeting.